This podcast and any written materials related to it represent the opinions of Lisa Kays and Paula D. Atkinson, and our guests to the show and any written materials. The content here should not be taken as medical advice. It is for informational and educational purposes only, and because each person is so unique, please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. In no way does listening, reading, emailing, or interacting on social media with our content establish a doctor-patient relationship.
Hello, everybody. You are listening to What If Nothing's Wrong With You. I am Paula D. Atkinson.
And I am Lisa KKs.
Lisa KKs. I love that.
I'll be parallel since you're throwing in your initial.
I didn't know you were Lisa KKs.
I am.
That's so fun. I love that. I hope everyone's having a great day. We are going to talk about women and mental health today, right after we get into our little chit-chats.
All right.
Lisa, can you start off and talk about what your son told you about what's happening on the playground?
Yes. So my son is 8. He is in the 2nd grade. And he came home and he said to me, we were driving in the car, listening to Taylor Swift.
Clearly.
And he said, Mom, if you had to choose who would die, would you choose Taylor Swift or Beyonce?
Jesus.
And I said, tell me more. Why I would need to choose one of them to die. And he explained to me that they have teams on the playground. He is the head of team Taylor Swift. He is white. I am white. He is white.
Clearly.
And they have, and then the head of team Beyonce, and the teams have different artists. So Beyonce has, I think, Adele with her. I think Taylor Swift has Dua Lipa. I'm going to mess up a little bit, but the team, there's like 4 artists, all female on each team.
Great.
Team Beyonce is headed by a girl of color. He did tell me, I asked for the teams are mixed race. So I was like, is Team Taylor Swift all white kids?
It's a little terrifying.
I was a little scared. He said no.
Okay.
But they have dance-offs, sing-offs to decide who will win that day's battle among them.
Yeah.
So anyway, but this came to me as who should die if I had to choose. And parenting is weird. You don't see any of this is not what I thought we'd be discussing. I said, I don't feel like either of them need to die. I really would like to see a collaboration maybe between them. I mean, if I had to choose something, I'm not choosing one of them to be eliminated from the planet. But I was like, this is the competition of like the white supremacy culture. I was like, oh, here we are.
Yes.
With the white supremacy culture of competition, there's literally not room on the planet for 2 talented women to coexist.
Right. And with women, there's always this or that. Who are you going to choose? It always has to be somebody is winning. When obviously
were there ever Michael Jackson Prince offs? I'm not aware of that.
I don't think so. And in a similar vein as Taylor and Beyonce, these 2 humans are doing wildly different things on the planet. Beyonce and Taylor are from different planets. Also, they just both had a world tour over the summer and both were wildly successful. I know there are some humans who went to both. I only went to Beyonce, but like it's obvious.
Was right for both. They coexisted.
Yes.
There was no need to decide which stadium, who would like own the stadium.
Right. It happened already. We did it. There were 2 world tours over the summer and it worked out. They both did very well. So why do we have to do this?
I don't know. But I talked to him about it. I was kind of like, whenever, like, maybe we should look up at the system. And it's like, why are we being taught that they can't coexist? Like, why? And there are very real reasons. Like, Taylor wins all the awards. Beyonce never got best. I mean, I'm learning about all this. I am not, but it's like that is all being perpetuated by this. Why do we need these awards? How are we quantifying art? Can't we just have
1000%.
a night where everybody dresses up and the 5 top selling albums of that year, maybe they sing us a song and we can celebrate like good job on your world tour. You both did great. Like why?
They both stimulated the economy, but right, like more money was spent this summer than ever. Yeah, because everybody had to buy silver clothes to go to Beyonce concerts and
Yeah, like,
rainbow friendship bracelets, I guess, to go to Taylor's
why
concert.
must it be
Yeah.
this way? But it's like if we look above them, they're in a system where there has to be a winner, there has to be a loser.
Right.
We all wonder, does Taylor deserve this award? Like, I would like to live in a world where I don't have to wonder. Like,
Yeah.
everybody can just feel good about their multi-million-dollar artistry that appeals to a lot of people.
Right.
It made me like just very sad that we can't just
It also,
enjoy people.
as a person who's taught the artist way for 1,000 years and who tries to help my clients make art, even if it's bad art, just make art, just make fucking art, because you're a happier person if you do make art. All of this stuff, all the capitalism, the toxic productivity, it must be consumable. There's a competition. It has to be the best. This is all the stuff that gets in the way of us just writing a shitty poem or painting a shitty picture, or like, I love my partner is a Virgo and also went to school for musical performance. So he's such an asshole when it comes to people making bad art. I love it when people make bad art because I love the idea that in late stage capitalism, this person took time out of their busy schedule to make shitty art and share it with the world. It makes me so happy. But this whole Taylor versus Beyonce thing is part of the reason why people won't allow themselves to just make crappy shit. Just make stupid shit for the fun of it.
You're an improviser. I'm an improviser.
Yes.
I taught improv. And the beauty of that is the discovery.
Yes.
Like I'm writing a novel. Also, what is bad art? I mean, what is good art? What is bad art? I don't know. I'm writing a novel. Is it shit? I don't know. But I am learning a lot about I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about that. I didn't even it's so interesting to discover. And we are like why can't we discover Taylor? But why? And I just read this book, The Brain on Art, which I have mixed feelings about because I do by the end, I felt like I was reading a commercial for like AI generated weird Google. I was like, this is somehow a Google commercial. That said, there is a lot of research in this book supporting how art is good for our brains.
Exactly.
Taking it in, singing, and it doesn't have to be good for our brains.
Exactly.
We have literally been drummed out of any knowledge about how like just the process of engaging in art is good for us.
Right.
And we so hell-bent about that's crap, that's not.
Right. And the internal experience of creating something that has never been created before because it couldn't have, because you have never existed before. That is all it's about. Whether or not somebody across the country thinks it's cute or not is not the point.
And Paula, how do we get from, I'm trying to figure out, how do we get from the internal experience of, and especially in like these children who, who don't know of like, I like listening to this Taylor Swift song. It makes me feel good. I like it, whatever, to now Taylor Swift must annihilate Beyonce. How do I get,
right? If that's not internal capital. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who is this like old crone. She wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves. She's so amazing, and I love everything about her. And she always talks about how you're not allowed to say that's good or bad art. You're only allowed to say that resonates with me or it doesn't resonate with me, which I love, right? Like if we could change the framing of this is good and bad, which is binary, and as we know, all binaries are a lie, and just like, this resonates with, like my partner loves death metal, right? Or like I cannot, no, thank you. That does not
yelling music. I'm like, they're yelling. Why are they yelling at me? Why am I enjoying them yelling at me? Not resonate with my nervous system.
No, does not resonate with my essential vibration. No, thank you. However, but I feel like that's the way I feel about Taylor Swift. Like I respect it. I respect the whole thing. Like, good for her. I'm on board. I would like to not listen to it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like really, it's just, it's something that you said made me think of something else, but I don't remember what it was. So
That's fine.
I remember what it was.
Yeah.
Now saying that especially in my groups, but with my patients all the time, because I feel like therapists are taught to kind of actually help people try to figure out, like, well, is what you're feeling right?
Yeah.
I'm so done with that, and much more
Yes.
I'm thinking about the more I ask them, does that resonate with you? Does it feel right to you? Nothing
Yes.
else matters, which, and
Yes.
that doesn't necessarily mean that every behavior is a great idea.
Sure.
To
Yes.
teach people, if that resonates with you, what these other 6 people think does not matter, especially for women, which we'll talk about more, has been a
Yes.
little bit, and I am disturbed that I have not been doing more of that in my whole career. But that question of does it resonate with you? That's all, full stop,
Yes.
is a game changer. Therapeutic.
Yes. It is, right? Yes. I love that. Yes,
That I need
absolutely.
to pay $60,000 to learn to ask that question.
Does this resonate with you? Does it not resonate with you? Yeah. Yeah. It's also like, it's okay that Taylor Swift and Beyonce are from different planets and are doing completely different things, right? That's okay. We don't have, there's no competition. There really is no competition.
2 talented women on the planet. There's room
Yes.
for so many talented men. Why is there not room for 2 talented women?
Well, there's no room for talented men because none of them won Grammys. It's all the women. All the women won everything this year. There was like no men in any category. It was so I was here for that. That was
Wasn't
amazing.
the guy replaced? Wasn't there like a misogynist, sexist, sexual harassing guy in charge, and he was replaced, and all of a sudden the women could win? I think I read that. Don't quote me on that.
I don't know, but that sounds right.
Made that up. I think that's true.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, look, women can win now.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Still not black women, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we wanted to talk about Julia Roberts.
Yes.
Tell me the thing.
So did you see this too?
I did see this, but I didn't read the whole thing. So tell me what you read.
So she posts, I now follow Julia Roberts on Instagram. I did not before because I don't do the celebrity thing. But there was this picture I commented because it was actually, I saw it on a wait until 8th, which is the thing to encourage kids to not be on social media till 8th grade.
Oh.
And that's how I saw the clip tagged together. She had posted this picture of her and her niece. I don't know, some like 11 to 14-year-old girl. They were playing cards.
That's Emma Roberts. That's her niece. She's like 25. But yeah, keep going.
Oh, is she? She looks younger. Are you sure?
Maybe she was younger at the time, but she is a woman with a child.
She could have been being re-interviewed about something older.
Sure.
Anyway, I'm clueless about all of this. I don't know.
It's okay. I love that.
I hear this voice on the thing, and I was like, this voice sounds familiar. And I'm looking, it shows the image of the picture, and it's this like, woman with no makeup, hair up in a bun, and this like cute little girl, and they're smiling and playing cards. And I'm like, this is kind of weird that they're putting these random people up. But then I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, the woman looks kind of familiar. And then I realized 2 rounds into watching it that it's Julia Roberts. Like, she was so unrecognizable because she just looked like a person, like a normal made up person. And she was saying, I posted this picture and I got so many flooded with hate comments about how dare I put myself up looking ugly. The girl was ugly. This like barrage of comments about how horrible they looked, and she had no business putting this picture up. And she was just talking about how I'm 50 years old. She didn't say this, but I interjected. I'm fucking Julia Roberts. I know.
For real.
She was like, I'm 50 years old. I know who I am.
Right.
And this still hurt me. And she was saying, I cannot imagine being a 11, 12, 13-year-old girl on social media enduring, like, before you're Julia Roberts, or you're never going to be Julia, enduring how it would erode your self-esteem.
Yeah.
And it would just, I've been having a lot of experiences of like kind of being gaslit or being told like some reality. And even when I am so firmly grounded in what I know, like jars you, and you have to like look stuff up. And it just made me realize the extent to which words have so much power over us, even when we know the truth, let alone young women who don't yet, like, this is who I am, or this doesn't matter. It's just shocking. It was shocking.
It is shocking, and I feel like it harkens to what we're going to talk about later about like how women are taught from birth to outsource our validation, right? That like we are not allowed to just validate ourselves in our own experience. We have to, other people have to co-sign our experience first. And with beauty, with somebody thinking we're beautiful or not beautiful or whatever, right? Like that is it's such a mind fuck because we're only allowed to be beautiful, you know, if we have these things. And then we're only allowed to be beautiful for a very short amount of time. And then you are, luckily, or hopefully, or you die. Like the choices are you get ugly or you die. Those are your two choices. So yeah. And for even Julia Roberts, who has been called beautiful a billion times, for it still to, of course, cut in. And also she's just like, she was just sitting there playing cards with her niece. Like it was not a red carpet.
No, and she wanted to just show the joy of the moment. And she was,
Yeah.
you know, it reminded me of a lot of what you say. She was just trying to convey her joy in the moment. And it was like, if this moment doesn't include you looking beautiful,
Beautiful.
fuck you.
Right. She's not
Like,
allowed to have an experience unless other people are enjoying the experience of looking at her. Yeah.
yeah,
Right. Which is true of us.
that's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
That's-
It reminds me of that time. I don't know where this came from, but I kind of do. I was walking into Trader Joe's in Washington, D.C. when I still lived there. And a man actually, a very older man, actually told me to smile. And this is like right around when I turned 40 and like the seething feminist rage just starts like pouring out of my pores. And I was like, oh, no. We don't do that anymore. And he was like, oh, he was actually really kind. He was like, oh, I'm sorry. Why? And I was like, oh, I don't have to do anything to increase your pleasure of looking at my face. And he was like, oh, that makes sense.
So you
I
have
was like,
no idea what's happening in my life, in my
right,
experience.
right. I don't have to put
this is-
effort into your enjoyment of looking at my face right now. And he was like, oh, that makes sense. I was like, great, carry on. It was
that is
actually,
a
he
rare-
actually was, yeah, he was actually teachable in that moment. But yeah, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to put effort into you enjoying looking at me.
And that reminds me, I was on a bus once, the 42 bus in DC when I was young, and I was with a girlfriend, and I was like complaining about probably an ex or a guy doing, you know, something. I was
Sure.
complaining really loudly because I can be loud. And I was scolded loudly by the guy across from us on this bus. Like, you know, you shouldn't be. I was too angry. I mean, I viscerally remember
Wow.
and scolding me, telling to shut up, telling me I wasn't talking in a nice way. And I've always wondered if we were two guys
Yes.
and I at that time had no ability, you know, to
Sure.
be like, hey, no. I mean, but it just, I'm like, if we were two dudes on the bus, would that have gone that way? I don't,
No.
that-
No.
like, you know, bitching about football or something.
Right.
Like,
Or even to bitching about a bitch, bitching out about a woman. I'm sure he would have been fully on board. The only other thing I want to say before we get into our women in mental health, I hosted many therapists. They all came to Palm Springs, which is where I live now, for the weekend. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was really intense and it was really lovely and it was really wonderful. And it made me think about this podcast because I couldn't help myself from thinking several times, these are just people. And if 7 people from anywhere came to visit me and I was hosting them, it would be exhausting and it would probably different ways. But it made me remember what we are trying to convey in this podcast, which is that like therapists are not superior human beings. They don't know more than you do. Or maybe they do. They know more about what Freud said 100 years ago, but like they're not, we are not constitutionally superior humans. We're just fucked up bozos on the bus, just like everybody else. And I'm not saying that because I'm trying to throw my friends under the bus. I love them deeply, but I was like, we're just people. And I think the mental health field, like we talked about last time, coming from the medical field, which is this idea that this person outside of you knows more about you and your body and your experience than you do. I just want to reiterate it over and over again. Therapists are just people. And sometimes even the reason they became therapists is because they have more experience with in their life, in their childhood, with experiences of sanity and maybe insanity, however you would define those things. And so just to remember all of that, it was intense.
And then our experiences, I mean, what I like to say, because I have supervisees who are like terrified to say to me that they are depressed.
Yeah.
And they're like, I know I'm supposed to be. And I'm like, let's stop. Like, so it's like our pain and our experiences. I'm not good at what I do because I've read a lot of books about it. I am good usually because the people are now self-selecting and I know some slice. I have lived a slice of their story.
Yes.
So it's like you want a therapist who's had some pain, but you also want them to be connected in it and okay with that and not
Right.
sitting above it as if they have, because that is where I think it can get. And the more I practice, the more I ask for people's projections about me, and then I
Yeah.
laugh. I just laugh. I don't even,
Great.
and I like to be more like careful about it. But I just like crack up half the time, and I'm like, really? And I that has been very,
Yeah.
I think, useful and helpful to even be more overt about like, you think I'm what? Like, let me tell you about do you want to hear? Would it be helpful for you to hear about the last time I screwed up parenting, especially with the parenting? Or,
Yeah.
would you like, and I don't, go on for 15 minutes. They don't need, but I find that the more I'm kind of like, tell me about how you think I'm not human and let me dispel that for you.
Yeah.
It's very helpful
Yes.
in the work because I'm just like, I don't get the value anymore of this way I was taught of being like vague.
Untouchable. Yes.
I don't, and I
No.
think that relates to what we're going to talk about with women about how you give, if somebody's too blank or too, like that will make you start to feel a little loopy if you
Crazy.
can't organize around somebody and kind of have a sense of who you're dealing with.
Yes.
So,
Right.
I don't know, we're a little off topic, but yes. Oh, and this, yeah, therapists are human. And if your therapist seems to be having a bad day, they might be having a bad day. Their parent could be dying. They, and, or like they could be ill or someone that they love could be ill. They could,
Yes.
so if you are picking up like, ooh, that seemed, you don't have to take in everything we say. You can
No.
question it. Now when my patients are like, were you having a bad day that day? I can kind of be like, you know what? I'm not gonna dump it all over you, but yeah, you're probably onto something. My energy might have been off that day.
Sure.
Like, because but it's like so many of us I think are trained. No, what's that
Right.
about you? Why are you thinking that? What's going on with you?
That is so gaslighty and weird. Yes.
I won't gaslight anyone. I'm just like, I won't. If they pick it up and they're right, I'm like, you're on. You've figured me out. I'm a person. Good work.
Yeah. Or even if they're wrong, I'm like, yes, I'm sorry. Because that was your experience. So great. Sure.
I was thinking about when you were talking about being, how women are taught like you have to be pretty and you have 5 minutes to be pretty, and like the terror we live through with that.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like, and it's actually had been very dangerous for women to be considered outside of the norm.
Yes.
And and so I want to say one thing because I know that using the word crazy is challenging,
Yeah.
and that many, and rightfully so, say that we should be eliminating that word. And I understand that. I agree with it. And I think it is the necessary word, not if we are talking about someone in present time, like you
Yeah.
are crazy, but to talk about the historical experience of what has happened to women who have been,
Yes.
and men, and particularly, and Black people under slavery, under
Yeah.
like many groups of people. But in this episode, we're going to talk about women, that how that label has been used to destroy, institutionalize, harm women. I think it's important to use that
Right.
label because it's what was happening. I can't think of a better word. So anyway, We
Great.
can accept feedback about that, but that's my thought. But when we started thinking about this, about this episode, I was like, I'm remembering something. And I went back in my email. My mom and I have been doing some historical excavation, partially because I had this visceral experience a couple of years ago where I was convinced, I was like, they're going to come get me and put me away. I've had multiple episodes of like times that don't make sense. Like I'm not like delusional. I'm not hurting myself, where I have thought like somebody's going to think I'm crazy and they're going to come put me away. And my mother used to say that she always felt like if our house wasn't perfectly clean, the police were going to come, and like she would have this irrational kind
Whoa.
of like, if the house isn't perfectly clean, the police will come and take her. And she never understood like what, about. And I was always like, that's, but our house was always very clean. We were listening to the Dolly Parton podcast. What's that podcast called? The Dolly Parton?
Dolly Parton's America.
And Dolly Parton mentions how a woman in her family was institutionalized for like being a not great woman, not for any sort of mental illness. And I sent that episode to my mom, and she was like, you know what? That got me thinking. And she went and dug up, and I have an ancestor, my mother's father's mother, I think it was put in an institution, a mental health institution, because her husband at the time wanted to marry another woman.
Sure.
So you could just be like, I don't really need you anymore. I don't want you around. Then we went back. There are multiple women in my ancestry that have either received shock therapy,
totally,
most likely unwarranted.
Yeah.
And I know one of those cases where it was literally because they probably needed like a week or two off to have like a moment after like a massive loss, dealing with small children. And the husbands are just like, no, you need to function. I need a wife. I can't do all these things. So you got to go to the hospital. The fastest way to get you better that we have is to shock you.
Shock your brain. Yeah, totally.
Experience and affects people for their life.
Yes.
You can function I just raise these as examples, first of all, of the visceral fear women probably carry ancestrally without even knowing why, of being in any way labeled mentally off or,
crazy,
perceiving something, how that makes us so susceptible to gaslighting.
Yes.
Okay, your reality's playing out. Yeah, that's fine, because I don't want to, and the ways that like mental institutionalization was just used as a tool of like, you need to be performing for me under patriarchy. And if you are not, I will literally throw you away. This ancestor of mine was not got out of the institution till her grown sons were old enough and able to go get her out and like vouch for her. Men had to go be like, we will care for her. And this was, she died in 1956. This is not like
ancient history.
Yeah. It's so disturbing.
Yeah. I don't love all that, but I appreciate all of that as like a foundation for thinking about women and mental health and women and the way we are brainwashed to regard our emotions, our emotional state, our internal experience of being alive under patriarchy, under capitalism, under white supremacy, and how it's always, and you know that I say this all the time, it's always like infinite systems of oppression and gaslighting that's mirrored back to us as individual failure. That if I am not performing whiteness, productivity, domesticness, and then you and I have talked about this all the time, then the entire system of our country, the way our country functions, was made for white, cis, straight men who have indentured servants at home called wives. And then we still have that system, but since the 70s, things have shifted. But now women have to do all of the indentured servitude of wifedom, and we have to have a fucking job, and you have to have a full-time job. But the expectations of men has not increased. The expectations of women have increased. And then we're taught, oh my God, why am I so depressed? It must be my fault. There must be something wrong with me. Why am I anxious? Why am I depressed? Why do I have, right? But like, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing.
Like, why am I not loving this experience. I mean, that's what I see
Yes.
with the women in my practice, with myself, is like when women are like, I'm not do I want to have kids?
Right?
Or they have kids and they're like, I'm not thoroughly enjoying the experience of caring for small children in a culture that completely does not support that in any way.
Yes.
If you have any inkling of like, I'm not fully convinced this is, they automatically like, what's wrong with me? Am I
Yes.
crazy? Why am I not loving this, everyone? And I'm just like, it's not enjoyable. You
Because
can
it's not
trust
fun.
that it is not an enjoyable experience phase. It is unsupported. Like, yes, it will change and shift. It might get better. But this, I think women do that largely because of this sense of the minute they start to be like, I don't know if I can do all of this. I might be a little burnt out. I might be, which
Yes.
now raised two children with like actual help and support and still been like, really? Is this what's happening? Like, this is very hard, not thoroughly
Right.
enjoying it. The minute you start to like maybe need a break, you start thinking, I mean, I think literally, I'm like, they're going to put me away. And
Yeah.
it's like, you probably just need to go to the beach for 3 days and not have somebody needing something from you, but it becomes
Right.
apologized.
Right. Well, and also we are not, and you and I've talked about this. I don't have children, but I know in my body that this is not the way we're supposed to raise children, that it's supposed to be a village of women. So that when, as my mom used to say, when you want to throw your baby out the window, there's an auntie comes in, takes the baby out of your hand, says, bitch, go take a nap, and then, hands the baby. Right. Like that's how it's supposed to be. But it's not that we're all, because capitalism needs us all to live in a box alone with our children and our fucking husband, which is a terrible system. And then we're like, why do I feel depressed? Girl, you're depressed because you don't have any friends and you don't have any time to have any friends and you don't have any time to take a nap and you don't have your mother and your aunt and a village full of women around to say, girl, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just tired.
Well, and potentially what I see being potentially the most damaging is that women are so scared.
Yes.
Talk about, I see this over and over in my practice. They're so scared to admit that,
Right.
like, I don't know if I want to have kids. I don't know if I want to do this. I
Yes.
have kids, and then I'm like, oh shit, what did I do? I'm not loving this. This is hard. They go to talk to other women.
Yeah.
Those are so scared to
Are
admit that
performing.
maybe, oh, this is great. I'm loving this. This is wonderful. And then
Right.
they feel crazy
Right.
because like, oh my God, it is just me. There's something
I'm
wrong with me
right.
because everybody's too terrified. I work so much individually with women saying this to me, and then I'm like, why don't you say this in your group? And they're like, oh no.
No, I can't admit it. It's
And
like the
I haven't really worked
Scientologists.
around this, like, this is not, but
Right.
they go out to their friends and everybody's like, no, it's wonderful. It's great. It's perfect. I'm loving it. And I'm like, that
Right.
is so harmful. And we are doing it to
To
ourselves and
each
each other.
other.
And I think it's largely because of this fear of
Yeah.
acknowledging what an experience is. It is wonderful and it is horrible and it is
Terrible.
complicated. And there are many factors that play into your experience of it.
Yes.
And nobody can be honest. Like
Yeah.
we had the village was amazing. All
It
those
was.
women in the room, like, fuck this is horrible.
That's terrible.
God.
Thank God. Yes, of
I feel
course.
that way too. It's not just me.
Because it was all built by men for men. So of course there's nobody thinking about the needs that a woman might have to just like talk to their friends or have the children. And now I don't even understand how y'all do it because at least when I was a kid, my mom was like, get the fuck out of my house. And like would just shut the door on me. And like I would just run around the neighborhood all day. My mom didn't know where I was for 8 to 10 hours of the day during the summer. But now you have to be with your children all the time.
all the time.
That is
Hey.
wild.
Or you put them in structured activities.
That costs money.
It's literally so that it's like I can have 45 minutes to be on my phone to do all the admin stuff for my children that I can't do. It's like go do some gymnastics so I can. But
that costs money.
You can't send them out to run around for a variety of it's a very different thing. And I think even having a space for women to talk about like, well, this is not what I knew I was signing up for.
Sure.
I'm imagining And like some of that is because of generations, the time change. Some of it is, I think, because as a child you are misperceiving your mother's experience. Like,
Of course.
"Oh, she's loving throwing this birthday party." No, she's not.
No,
She
she's
ain't.
on Valium and she had
Every minute of it,
Chardonnay. Yeah.
it's horrible. But like you're thinking, oh, my mom had so much fun throwing me this party. So there's so many ways that it's like, well, the number of times women say like, nobody told me this was what this was going to be
Part
like.
of it.
And it's like, if we could just, and it's like, it's getting a little better around like childbirth. But
Yeah.
I feel like there is so much still guardedness and my doctors were not honest with me about what was going to happen to my body. I
Right.
am still it's like, when I go for medical stuff for my children, no one tells me what is going to happen. And it's like, if you could just tell me the truth.
The truth. Yeah.
But then you don't. And then I'm at home thinking, well, I guess I screwed this up.
And it must be my fault and I'm doing it wrong and every other woman seems to be having a great time. It's like the Scientologists, you know, that when you get to a certain level in Scientology, you're told that now you can read people's minds and none of them can actually read minds, but they're all afraid that the other people can. So none of them admit that none of us are reading anybody's mind. That's like how moms are. They're like, I'm going to pretend like I'm having a great time because everybody else seems to be having a great time. Thank God my mother, God bless her, for a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons is she never pretended she was having a great time.
It's the only way I stay sane. Is like, that's what I would say. If you are a woman out there and you in any way feel literally like you're the only one about anything,
You're
like,
not.
I feel like you do have to build up kind of a armor, because many women will, oh, that's a problem for you, I'm doing great.
Sure.
But like, only way I stay sane, I found out my kid had a reaction to a medication. I thought he was like, I don't know, becoming some horrible person. And the only way I know is that I told my hairdresser and she was like, oh, my kid got that medication and it happened to him too. Like, I keep myself sane by telling everyone, like, these are all the ways I'm a terrible mother. These are all the ways you think I'm screwing. This happened. What was this about? And like 1 in 5 will be like, oh, me too. And then I'm like, oh, it's
Thank
like
God.
it's the only way I get information.
Yeah.
We're scared.
Right. We're so scared.
I don't know how anybody gets information if they're not weird like me and able to be like, so this is how I failed as a mother today. What's going on with you?
Well, but I think part of that, I mean, I don't know, but I would assume a part of that is because you had children later. So that you have a little bit more, right? Like all the studies show being an older parent means that you have more like ego strength to be able to be like, well, maybe I fucked up, but at least I'm going to share about it and see if other women want to join me, which is great.
Well, and how much of, well, maybe this would I also think being a therapist to a lot of other women, like for you,
Yeah.
how much more sanity, because we also don't talk about how we get healed.
Totally.
Hey, how much of it comes from like, okay, I now heard 10 ladies complain about this.
Yeah. Right. Give a healing, get a healing. Right. And so much of my clients, I say like, I hope it helps me. I hope it helps you for me to tell you, you are not alone. Everybody's like, I tell my clients most of my female clients who are like, I don't know how other people get it all done. And I'm like, nobody is getting it all done. Who are these imaginary women that you think are getting it all done? Yes, millionaire women are getting it all done because they have hired help, but nobody is getting it all done. I swear to God. Nobody.
One of my favorite lines is, you are the 5th woman this week to say
yes, exactly. To say,
so,
I don't know how other women get it all done. Yes.
Or any number of things. You are literally the 5th, because I'm like, it's yeah. And that's why it's so painful to me how isolated so many women are, because the antidote is the gossip. Like, we've been talking about gossip.
Yes.
Like,
Gossip.
that's the antidote.
Yeah. So I learned this week from Instagram, which is where I get so much of my information, that the history of gossip and gossip being categorized as a sin was created by men for women, because when women gossip, quote unquote, it's basically just women talking shit about men and talking like, that guy beat the shit out of me and that guy raped me and that guy, and it's women sharing preventative information with each other. And then it got categorized as a sin by white men, so that women were not, now they would feel shameful if they gossiped, if they talked about other people to each other. But like, I mean, I think that there is some gossip that is corrosive. And I also think that a lot of it is just like connecting and like, is this your experience? Oh, that's my experience too. I
Or
feel like I
warning,
am a complex.
warning.
Yes, warning, preventative. Hey, girl, just want to let you know. I think also I am. There's also a part of like labeling all gossip as bad that does not make room for the fact that I am a complex enough human being to be able to be like, hey, Lisa, so and so did this, so and so. Is that your experience with them too? And you're able to be like, yeah, that's my experience with them too. And I'm able to be like, okay, part of this is my projection. Part of this is my own shit that I need to clean up. But part of this is my lived experience of interacting with this person. And I would like just to get it validated. I am a complex enough human to be able to do all of those things at the same time.
Or I might say to you, I've known that person for 10 years. I have never known them. And then you
Totally.
might be able to be like, okay, they're having
That's
a
probably
blip.
they're having a
This is
bad day, or this is my shit and I'm projecting my shit onto them. Okay, sure. Yes.
And it's the same logic that gets us companies where we can't talk about our salaries. Is
Exactly.
that like they've now, all that crap that came out when I was a young, office worker person, and it was like, oh, women just aren't negotiating right, and they individualized it, and now we know it's just because we can't ask each other how
Right.
much we'll make. I mean, there are rules that there's even antitrust laws that prevent therapists from sharing their rates on listservs so that you could try to like
Yes.
guesstimate. Yes, thank you, economist husband, who finally explained that he was like, please do not ever post your because that's antitrust.
Yes.
These concepts that have come up that
Right.
prevent collective, like what's fair, what are we all doing?
Right.
Uh, it's so corrosive. Like that's how information
Yes.
gets scattered. And we have been wondering about it. I mean, look, we're ethical. We're not going to blow the books off of anything.
No.
But even thinking about therapy,
Yes.
and all these rules about like in groups, you cannot socialize outside of the group. Like, and a lot
Does
of
that
people are
really serve us? Yeah.
like, who is that serving
Right.
exactly in a group with a nefarious or narcissistic or highly problematic leader, or maybe one who's sleeping with everyone, which
Yes.
that stuff has happened. That is
All
not,
the time.
those rules really serve that kind of leader. Like, I've been
Yes.
really thinking about like, who do these norms around secrecy? Because a lot of patients are also confused and they'll say to me, I know I'm not supposed to talk about my therapy. I'm always like, that rule goes from me to you.
Right.
It's not, oh, you can talk about me
You
to
can
any,
tell anybody anything. Yeah, of course you can.
but to really think about like, who are these rules
Actually
serving?
serving. Yes.
Exactly. And that lens of this was to protect men maybe engaging in not great behavior,
Right.
to create all these systems about, well, you shouldn't really talk about that. I mean, I'm very wary now when anyone tells me. I used to be told in therapy to never talk about my therapy to anyone else because it would contaminate it.
Really?
So, like,
That's
who's that
terrifying.
serving? Yeah. I was always
Your
like, that doesn't sound right. That sounds yucky.
your
Like, that's
creepy culty therapist is who that protects. Not
so
you.
be wary of anyone telling you.
Right.
Keep secrets or to not check something out with people or talk about it or whatever.
I love it when my clients come to me and they're like, "Well, I told my best friend what you said and she thought it was weird." And I'm like, "Cool, let's explore that." Okay, great. Maybe it was weird. Maybe okay. Right?
Yeah.
Check it
I
out with your friends,
that.
please.
Yeah. I had a whole group yesterday where they were all like, "We don't like your policies," and they were talking about it with each other, and they
Great.
were like, "Great, I'm not going to change them, and I'll talk to you about
Right.
it's great that you're talking about it and you have feelings about it, and that's fine." Or yeah, when they come and they're like, "My friend said this was weird," and sometimes I do need to like, well, let me think about that. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, we can have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
But this idea, but a lot of, and, people will be like, oh, well, why are you contaminating your therapy with outside information? And I'm like,
That's a cult.
that,
That's what a cult would say. Yeah.
that's,
Anything you think whenever you think that's what a cult would say, you should question that.
Mhm.
I wanted to talk about women in therapy because well, for all these reasons, but also because women are more likely to seek therapy because women are brainwashed to need someone outside of them to validate them, right? Women are Men are allowed to trust all of the thoughts in their head, which is a problem. Must be nice though. I think that sounds amazing. I don't know what that's like.
Do you trust all of the thoughts in your head? What percentage of thoughts in your head do you trust?
I want to say 70%.
That's pretty
Which
good.
is, yeah, pretty high. I would, just because, like I've said before, I'm always in my head, and I tend to just think things through or have different scenarios about things, and you know, just choose one. It's almost like a choose an adventure type of a scenario, and I just okay, well, if out of the three, what's the best for me, and I just choose that path, and yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I've known Namika for almost 20 years, and he is a very measured person. Like he perseverates, and then he's like, "This is what I'm going to do."
Yeah.
But you're also a Virgo, so that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Let me ask this, Nameka, if somebody came up and yelled at you, screamed at you, would you have any thoughts of like, did I make that up? Did that just happen? Like, did I do something to cause that? Like, do you have any sort of like, or would you have to like, call a friend and be like, this just happened? I don't know.
Is it my fault?
Right. Initially, yes, I would think that because that came out of nowhere. You know?
Yeah.
But like I said, I would analyze my actions the past 24 hours or whatever, you know, like, did I actually try to antagonize this person or, you know, whatever? And,
which is great. And I think that's the majority of probably like white cis straight men would immediately go to a place of like, I'm right, everything that I perceive is right, would not question themselves probably as much as you do, which makes me happy to be your friend, but also wish I could give you a little bit of white straight cis men confidence. Shouldn't we all just be able to drink a potion and have a little bit of white straight cis men views of ourselves? But yeah, I think women, you know, we are not allowed to trust our instincts. We're not allowed to trust our internal experience, right? And we need other people to validate them. And we're also, women are taught that we're allowed to seek help too, which men are taught they're not allowed to seek help. So it's like the same, different sides of the same coin, that we cannot trust ourselves, which means we are allowed to ask for help. But a lot of times when that help, which is what this whole podcast is about, when that quote unquote help is actually supporting the idea that you cannot trust yourself, that's not actual help. What we want, and we said this on our first episode, right, is for a therapist is on your side, helping you to trust your internal experience, helping you to trust your perceptions, if your perceptions are moving you in the direction of your dreams of peace and freedom and sanity. Sometimes my perceptions are not moving me in the dreams of peace and freedom and sanity. And that's when you want a therapist who's like, yeah, I understand why you would think that. Can we look at this a different way? Or can we explore other options that might be going on? But from a loving perspective, not from a perspective of there's something diagnosably wrong with you. Just like, I can understand why you would think that, but that may not be exactly what's happening. And let's explore other options. Does that make sense? Did I make sense just now?
And checking it out in terms of, I now even go one step back and I'll say to somebody like, if I had some thoughts based on what I know of your whole history.
Yeah, I like the way you say that.
Would you want to know them?
Yeah.
Like, do you really want to believe what you're believing? Or are you in a place? And usually people will be like, okay, yes, tell me.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I'll be like, could this be a repetition of this pattern? Like, you know, could this be? And, you know, then they can decide yes or no. And I will believe them. If they say like, no, that's not what this is. Okay. But I think that's different than being like, well, you're really deviating. Like, I think recognizing that women are part of the patriarchy too. Therapists are trained and indoctrinated, and it's very recent that there are anti-patriarchal even forms of therapy.
Yes.
Most are not. I just discovered them when I was researching for a presentation. Like, we're not. So realizing if you're in therapy and you're being told, you know, sometimes like sort of this like, well, it's really, you know, the best you can expect. Like, you know, should you be asking more of your husband kind of thing? And you're like, this feels a little 1950s. It might be. It very well might be.
Or 1890s, right?
Or 1890s.
Yes,
And
totally.
when my poor ancestor was being institutionalized,
Exactly.
kind of check in with yourself and be like, oh, that doesn't sound like the kind of marriage I actually want to have. Like,
Yeah.
and because we are all steeped in the system too. And like
Yes.
therapy can be when I go train therapists, some of the stuff I say that is anti-patriarchal is still hard to get people to buy.
It's revolutionary sometimes to just be like,
Yeah.
oh, that sounds super misogynistic. And it's like, oh,
Yeah, but half
fascinating.
the times the room is like, no. And it's
Yeah.
like people need to be aware that could be your therapist who
Yes.
are having a very hard time convincing to be a little less patriarchal or oppressive.
Right.
Like, so if you're having that instinct, you can trust it. Like
Yeah.
that where it's not beyond the pale.
No. Remembering that the entire white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalistic, colonial structure that we all live in constantly, it's the air we breathe, is a relatively constant gaslighting experience for all female identifying people. And then we're taught to be afraid of being diagnosed as crazy within this structure, within all of these systems. And that system determines craziness as anything outside of a brain that functions like a white, capitalistic, colonial, heterosexual cis man. So like all that to say, like find a therapist who understands what I just said. Make sure a therapist understands all of that. Or else a lot of times, and I know you and I, Lisa, we've both had this experience, you end up being in therapy for a really, really long time with somebody who is just supporting your worst fears about your own brain. And there might be nothing wrong with you. You just have a therapist that is matching the vibration of all of your fears about being a crazy person. And that's not going to help.
No, and because you really want somebody who's kind of like, what are your instincts? What are your, and a lot of women have been taught not to trust their instincts.
Exactly.
And our instincts that are not great, but it's pretty easy to work with somebody to help them decipher for themselves which of your instincts are self-destructive, which are helpful. Yes. And I think my conspiracy theory that I've just cooked up, that I think because I'm very intrigued lately, and I didn't have time to go to Google Scholar and see if what I'm saying is true.
I'm sure it is.
So narcissistic abuse, which is fundamentally the act of gaslighting people. Yes. I mean, it has many other elements, but gaslighting is a major one.
Yes.
And it creates these very subtle doubts about yourself and kind of erodes. It's very insidious. I am increasingly intrigued that therapists are not trained in it at all.
No.
And it has predominantly been written about, kind of discovered, understood by women. Yes. I don't know that it is in the scholarly literature. That's what I want to check on Google Scholar. Great question. Because it's a lot of Debbie Mirza just had it happen to her. I don't know how she figured it out. Her brain, I'm so she went through decades of narcissistic abuse, somehow analyzed it out, wrote about it, figured out how to recover about it. But most of the women, it's women that are experts on narcissistic abuse.
Obviously.
Don't know that I want to check and see if it's in the literature. And I find, and men therapists and many women therapists don't understand it.
Right.
So when someone who does understand it is saying, I think this is happening, I'm seeing they gaslight it again. And so I think that can also be a litmus test, is saying to somebody do you know what narcissistic abuse is? And see how they'll answer that.
Right. If they define gaslighting. Yeah.
If they really understand narcissistic abuse and how to recover from it, they're probably more on the anti-patriarchal
totally
side, because I don't think that's being taken as seriously as it should be. And I'm wondering if it's because it's a women-dominated, women-discovered, women's own experience field with not a lot of time. But I have to check that out.
I like that. I also think that another tenet of a good feminist, anti-patriarchal, anti-capitalist, anti-white supremacist therapist is, if you have a therapist, if you are a female identifying person and your therapist never asks you, what do you want? Ask your therapist why he, she, they have never asked you, what do you want? Because you and I, Lisa, have talked about for decades. A woman would hire a therapist for that therapist to help that woman get a husband and have kids, because that was the ultimate existence of a woman. And if you convinced a man to marry you and convinced a man to impregnate you, then you have reached the pinnacle of womanhood. So if you are a woman and a therapist never says, what do you want with your one wild and precious life? Like, you need to ask that therapist, you've never asked me once what I want. Because like that, your experience, Lisa, and my experience of having a therapist who never really asked me what I wanted, just assumed that I wanted to like get married and have kids, which I've done neither of those things. And I love my life a lot. So like that is usually that's a patriarchal therapist.
That might be the litmus test. We should put this in the experiment column.
Right.
Test it.
Yes.
And I think that could be the litmus test question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
does your therapist ever ask you what you want?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's
like
no
that.
other question. There's no other relevant question. I can't imagine being a therapist and never asking my clients that question. What other question is relevant?
Yeah. I ask it now quite forcefully a lot. And it's what
Yes.
happens to women is they're like, what? I mean, it literally disorients. They're like, what? I don't understand. I was just trying to figure out what he wants and how, and it's like, stop.
Or what
And-
looks good or what I should do. Yeah.
You don't even know how to answer. Half the time, that's a year of therapy. It's like, you need to figure out what it is that you want. And it's so disorienting.
Yes.
That-
Yes. I had a client who she was a college student when, and so she was just being a good little college student. But like, she used to get mad at me after a while, because every time I'd be like, but what do you want? Paula, I hate it when you ask me that.
Or they immediately go to like, but I'm not going to, he won't give that to me, or I can't get that. I'm like,
or I
"Well,
can't have that.
I don't care right now. Can we just get solid about
You
what it is?
owning what you want? Yeah.
Like the couples therapy I do, that is a principal practice, is like say, and what you want. And it is so hard. It's hard for men too.
Yes.
For women to just be like, this is what I want, without going through the million reasons they can't have it, or it's not okay, or is it an okay thing to want, or should I want that? I don't know. Is that
greedy?
selfish? It's probably selfish.
Selfish.
Like,
yes.
oh my God. And it's, that's
oh my God, Barbara, just say what you want. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
That should be the name of the episode. Women's mental health. What the fuck do you want?
What do you want? Well, and I like that you just did a little foreshadowing, because we are going to talk about couples therapy coming up. And if you want a fun thing to look at, by the time this comes out, it'll be a while back, but there is an amazing little video on JVN's Jonathan Van Ness's Instagram right now, where Sabrina Strings, who I love, Sabrina Strings is one of my heroes. She wrote Fearing the Black Body. She wrote a really incredible book about the intersection of fat phobia and how fat phobia is just a different flavor of white supremacy. And she and JVN are friends, and they're talking, and his JVN's initial question is, are the straights okay? and Dr. Sabrina Strings is like, no, girl, they're not.
And
So
then here's all this data. She's like, here's all the data.
I know. I love Sabrina Strings. She's so good with the data. She's incredible. Yes. So we will be talking about couples therapy. So from a couple's perspective, and as from people who are hired to help the couple, which Lisa and I will get into how complicated that is as a job description. We will get into that. If you want to tell us about a therapist you had that never once asked you what you wanted, you can find me. I am Paula D. Atkinson on all the things.
And I am at the Lisa K's, and you can ask us or tell us anything. And we
Exactly. Yeah. And if you have a question for two therapists who've been doing this for over a decade, if you have questions for us and you have an idea for an episode, let us know.
We're open.
Yeah.
We're anti-patriarchy.
Totally. Exactly. Totally open to new ideas and feedback. All right. Thanks, Tameka. Thanks, Lisa. See y'all next time.